Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite. I'm Jon Pollock with Wai Ting. Happy Wednesday. How is everyone doing?
You're asking me how everybody's doing?
If anyone else wants to speak up, they're free to, but by process of elimination, that leaves you. How are you?
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know if I speak for everybody, but I'm all right. I'm all right. How about you?
I almost got hit by a car today.
That's not good.
No, it's not. I was crossing the street. It was my signal to go, the green light, and someone decided to make a left on a green while I'm crossing. And it was one of those situations where no brakes, nothing. Like if I hadn't have stopped, Wai would have been doing this one solo tonight. That's all I'll be saying. This person just zoomed past me. Look, like I literally had to stop in my steps. If I had gone any further, I was not winning that equation.
Oh, God. Sorry. Yeah. So you were walking?
Yes, I was walking.
Yeah.
I was crossing the street with the right of way.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. This person who just had to make this left turn and just zoomed in front of me, like centimeters in front of me.
Did you get a license plate? I mean,
no, I had my headphones on and I just gave this person like the look of death, like they nearly gave me. Just went right by, like looked at me, kept going. It's like, this is a reckless person.
I'm sorry to hear that. Glad it wasn't
okay.
Yeah, glad it wasn't bad news.
Well, you know what I said under my breath?
What?
I said, I don't care if you're a member of the cafe. You are not winning a t-shirt tonight on our show. So you, miss, are disqualified, whatever your name is. But someone is going to be a lucky winner of our random draw among all our cafe members tonight. Are you ready to give away a shirt?
I'm ready. I hope that we don't draw the person who nearly ran you over.
I feel if you draw their name, I'll know it. I'll just know it deep down. Okay. So
how about whoever wins, we ask them to submit their license plate as well as a photo of their vehicle.
Yeah, where were you this afternoon in downtown Toronto?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. The drum roll is coming. Wait. An extra drum roll there. And the winner that Wai has selected, this person, is named
Joe Juarez. Congratulations, Joe, from Denver, Colorado. You are
definitely
the winner.
It definitely wasn't that person today.
Yeah.
So congratulations. All the way from Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, we won't need your license plate. I think we're pretty confident about this one. But Joe Juarez, congratulations. You win a t-shirt of your choice from store.postwrestling.com. Right now you can get the Post Pro Res t-shirt. You can get the Rocky Maivia Picture Shows t-shirt. You can get a Rewind-A t-shirt, a little bit of the Foily t-shirt, our toques, our caps, everything Post Wrestling you can find at store.postwrestling.com.
All right, go check out the store. Support Post Wrestling. We appreciate it very much. And if you are a cafe member, coming up this week, we've got a live cafe hangout Thursday, 3 o'clock Eastern, where we're going to be previewing Double or Nothing, and we'll be joined by David Bixenspan to chat about the Dark Side of the Ring episode covering Owen Hart, all of David's reporting on the Owen Hart case. That's coming up Thursday. Friday night, we've got Rewind to SmackDown on the cafe. And what are we chatting about on SmackDown?
We'll be chatting about WWE SmackDown.
I was just making sure you were paying attention.
I'm paying attention. Yes, of course.
On Rewind to SmackDown, what are we going to be chatting about? Well, Thunder, actually, John. So that's coming up on Friday as well. We will. We'll go through Dark Side of the Ring as well as per our regular reviews, but we'll probably get into it as well on the Hangout Thursday. So I know it's an episode a lot of people want to discuss. And then, if that's not enough, more of us on Saturday night after Double or Nothing. Double Ice Cap and Espresso members will be able to tune in live for our Double or Nothing post show. It'll be Wai and I from separate locations chatting about 10 individuals fighting inside of a football stadium.
Yeah, among other places within that area.
Including my favorite tagline. I thought nothing was going to top the greatest match of all time for Edge and Orton, but we've got on Saturday night, Shawn Spears versus Dustin Rhodes. Why the hell not? According to Jim Ross. Why the hell not?
Why the hell not? Well, listen, I mean, these shows they're not going to make 4 hours themselves, you know?
That is on Saturday. And then Sunday, the real main event of the entire weekend. It is Wai Ting and Pauline with Total Recall, chatting the latest episodes of Total Bellas.
Yes, we will be back on the Post Wrestling Cafe.
All right, so check out all of that stuff. Let's move on. Before we get into the news, I did want to mention we did put links to this in our updates yesterday and today, but there's a GoFundMe account for Larry Sonka, who passed away earlier this week, and I want to make mention of this. You can go into Wednesday's update, Tuesday's update. We have links there to the GoFundMe. You can go to GoFundMe and just search for Larry Sonka or Larry Mania, and the link will come up. They've already raised more than half of the goal, which is a real incredible figure. He had a wife and 2 children, so I want to mention that off the top if you would like to donate to that very worthy cause. And then we have a sad story to start off with, and one that was one that we were unfortunately expecting, and that was they did find the body of Shad Gaspard on Wednesday in Venice Beach, California, stemming from Sunday's incident. And there's no way to describe this other than a really tragic story. I would imagine that there is at least the closure of finding the body, but this is just an awful story, but one that was kind of, when we talked about it the other night, Wai, this was the unfortunate, inevitable outcome with all the circumstances surrounding this.
Yeah. I think, today really we got to see a lot of people share their thoughts. I mean, it felt a little bit weird to do it Monday because, as maybe as small as that window of possibility,
nothing was official.
Nothing was official, and like the people who really, really did want to hold out hope did for as long as they could. But today, with that confirmation, is when you got to see, really, I think, especially from a lot of his peers, a real outpouring of just their thoughts and memories of the man. And as the days have kind of progressed, you really just get a real picture of what a great human being this dude was. Wrestling aside, yeah. So very, very sad.
Yeah, there was a mention of him on AEW tonight. I haven't seen NXT yet, but I'm sure WWE, they had lots of mentions of this online. It's, he died in the most heroic way possible, but it's such a tragedy the way this his life ended. But that is how the day started off on Wednesday. Dark Side of the Ring aired on Tuesday night. It was the season finale of the series with the Owen Hart episode, and it did 349,000 viewers, making it the most watched episode in the history of the series, topping the Benoit episode, and in an interesting series of stats attached to the ratings. Among adults and males 18 to 49, adults 18 to 34, women 12 to 34, and adults 25 to 54, in all those categories, Dark Side of the Ring topped last Wednesday's episode of NXT.
That's amazing, and
that includes the main demo. They did like a 0.18, and NXT did a 0.15 last week. That is insane when you think about it.
Yes, especially considering the carriage that Vice has compared to USA. And the fact that this was, not a WWE property, but something that
and was going against WWE programming too, because FS1 was airing the Ruthless Aggression episode on Tuesday. Like, that's not giant, but it's not nothing either.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly successful.
What do you think happens next? Obviously, it's a no-brainer that Vice would want season 3. To me, if I'm the producers and directors, Number one, I think that they would probably want a bit of a breather from all this. There's also the limitations of what you can even dive right into next. I mean, going and shooting documentaries is not going to be as feasible as it was several months ago, given the current climate. But they have, I hope, like, for season 3, these guys have a lot of like leverage to me in terms of getting a very favorable deal for a 3rd season, and they have created something gigantic here.
For sure, yeah. For Vice, it is the greatest success I believe they've had on their television platform.
Definitely.
So, I've heard of discussions of, or at least rumors of them trying to branch it out to other sports, doing a similar type of series. So I can see them continuing to go ahead with those plans. But for the wrestling side of things, I mean, it's certainly shown that there's an audience that is willing to seek out Vice television for these types of things. So, we also have to, I guess, consider at this point, like, what sort of budgets they might have, how much money they can put into new productions. I imagine, something like a documentary. I actually have no idea, but I'm sure that cost of production is going to factor into how much they can really greenlight at this point too.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, these guys were able to show that they could, they've talked about it in certain interviews and such that, they do have a limited budget. They can't travel to every last place and interview every single person and what season 3 looks like. Like, now you have all of the, like, you have the audience, you've created this thing, and now it's, what do you do as a follow up to it? And what do, like, Jason Eisner and Evan Husney want to be doing next? I think you have to kind of make it worth their while to do this again, because, they, to me, have greatly increased the entire scope of Vice TV. So I'm very curious to see how they follow this franchise. And on the point about spin-offs of Dark Side, in theory, that sounds like the thing you do in television is you take a popular concept and you branch it out.
You beat it to the ground.
Well, that's it. But I would say that, yes, there are certain genres that you could do this with. But to find the level of interest that you are going to find with pro wrestling fans, but also the access available, I don't know if you could necessarily just suddenly go to Dark Side of the NBA and imagine that you can get the kind of access you can to such major stories that are known and get that access with the principal figures involved. And I think that would be, it'll be very difficult to me to just from scratch go to different industries and find that. And I don't that, like, Dark Side of MMA, there's tons of interesting stories, but I don't know if that will catch on to the same degree that a pro wrestling themed documentary series would. It all depends on how it's marketed, but I think that's it's easier said than done to just suddenly create like 5 of these.
It's true, yeah. I mean, at that point, you'd be competing with the likes of ESPN and a number of other, I would say, bigger TV channels that probably have a stake in producing more mainstream sports content. But listen, John, we could do there are plenty of niche sports out there. Okay,
dark side of game shows.
That might be something. Or I was more so thinking dark side of the NASCAR track, dark side of the badminton court, dark side of the ping pong table. But certainly wrestling really does provide, like, I would say, a very unique, I think, platform that is both incredibly colorful, has a number of really interesting characters and really interesting stories. It would be, I guess, a bit of a different challenge trying to use the template for another sport.
Raw on Monday night, not as favorable in terms of their trends. Although, I mean, in this whole climate, Raw is still doing very well among cable programming, but their audience continues to be down. 1,757,000 viewers on Monday. Their viewership was down 8.5%, and the demo was down 9%. This was their second lowest number of modern history. This is just below just ahead of the number a couple of weeks back on May 4th, which would be the all-time low. So last week was a positive sign, and I think a lot of it was probably on the Becky Lynch announcement, and they were able, though, to maintain people throughout that show. With this one, hour 1 and 2, very consistent around the 1.81 million range, and then we fell down in the final hour to just over 1.6 million. So we did see that drop in the third hour, but it just seems like last week was a 1 week reprieve, and I think this is the kind of the level that they're going to be landing around for the time being, unless you have something significant where we can be flirting with 2 million viewers. That's now like the new high point, to try and hit 2 million viewers on Raw.
Do you feel like this is any sort of indication about the level of success doing the shorter matches had?
I mean, if anything, it does say that the first 2 hours, they pretty much lost nobody for 2 hours. But that to me, that's been the story of Raw forever, is that people will watch this for 2 hours, and then a portion of people are done after 2 hours. And I don't think it matters what you have in the third hour. I don't know if the shorter matches, like I talked to you and others that, I mean, didn't even notice it. So I think it would have to be something that's more of an established pattern, that people are aware that that you're aiming for people with maybe a shorter attention span, or not the threat of losing people with a match broken up by a commercial. We'll also see if that's going to be a permanent thing. Was that just this past Monday that they happened to do this? Or if this is going to be something they try. I guess we'll know as early as, SmackDown on Friday or next Monday's Raw, if it's something they're going to continue or not. Do you think they will?
I think they will try it for at least another week. While I didn't notice that the matches were necessarily shorter, I did feel like the show never bored me. I didn't think it ever dragged, and that I thought was a positive. I would imagine they might continue for another week.
Martha Hart has been doing a bunch of interviews this week in conjunction with the Dark Side of the Ring, and has had this, well, I won't say necessarily back and forth, but Jerry McDevitt, who has been the legal counsel that the WWE has used forever, came out this week, and one of his comments towards Martha here was, let me get the exact wording here, was that we were basically trying to find out what happened that night regarding Owen's passing. Martha was not even remotely interested in finding out what happened that night. She just wanted to use it as a vehicle to beat up a business that she didn't like that her husband was in, the wrestling business. And Martha came back saying that if there was one person on this planet who wanted to get to the bottom of what happened to my husband Owen, it was me. The defense, on the other hand, was doing everything in their power to muddy the waters in an effort to detract from the case because they didn't have one. And she goes on to call McDevitt's comments absurd, reckless, and pathetic. That being in an interview with our guest tomorrow, David Bixenspan. But to me, it takes a lot to be Jerry McDevitt this week and come out and attack Martha Hart when I think the largest amount of people now understand many more layers to this tragedy beyond just the basics that Owen Hart fell from the top of Kemper Arena, that they're now starting to learn what was in Martha Hart's book that, certain places have outlined, but now you have a much wider audience that is learning about the problems with the rigging of the stunt, the equipment that was used, the countersuit that was filed against Martha, and a lot of the details that when you go through them, really hard to come on the side of WWE in any form or fashion. But there is Jerry McDevitt this week that was going out and publicly opposing Martha Hart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually surprised to hear some response from that side of things, especially in such a, I don't know, retaliatory
Oh, that's Jerry McDevitt. Jerry McDevitt is just, he wakes up looking for, this is a guy that...
So do you feel like this was, somebody within WWE telling him to say it, or he acted upon himself?
I don't think he's doing this complete. Like Jerry McDevitt, he works for a law firm that, one of their clients is WWE. So it's not like this guy works as a WWE employee, but he is has been their counsel forever. I'm certain he's not acting on his own here, and this was, on the advice of whoever. But Jerry McDevitt is a legal bulldog when it comes to this stuff. He is not someone you would ever want to be opposing in a legal battle. I think, no, but I just think that, to come out now, I just think that Martha Hart, if you have heard her on Dark Side of the Ring, with any of these other interviews, I think that a lot of people are getting a much deeper sense of Martha Hart now because she has stayed quiet for so long. And now that she is speaking out much more, I think that people have a much deeper understanding of this case. If they had not read her book, that now they are becoming familiar with. And it's when you see all of the preventable measures, it makes it that much more of a just head shaking case that Owen was ever in this position. And here's this woman who had the ultimate loss of all of this. And what she went through, I think, gets really underplayed in terms of how she came out of this somehow as, a success story, that this wasn't something that destroyed this woman or her family. I think it's remarkable, actually.
I agree. I mean, I thought that's what I came out of the TV special with, was just the incredible amount of respect I had for her and her strength. So anyway, yeah, more on this throughout the week.
Yeah, we'll be chatting about this Thursday and Friday. But the last story I just want to ask you about, Wai, and any thoughts you have on this, is this deal that Joe Rogan has announced that he's going to be moving his podcast to Spotify. It's going to start in September, and then around the end of the year. So in September, they'll launch on Spotify, but they'll still be on every platform. And then at the end of the year, they're going to go exclusively to Spotify. And the deal is said to be a multi-year deal worth around $100 million or so. So this is an enormous signing by Spotify to gain exclusivity to Joe Rogan that some have compared to, when Sirius signed Howard Stern all those years ago. But, Joe Rogan started his podcast 3 months after you and I did our first podcast. So I'm just wondering how we missed this window with Spotify. Where the hell is our $100 million deal?
You know what? Maybe if we, had Elon Musk on our show.
That's where we missed. I mean, we had Damian Abraham. Did he ever smoke a joint on our show in the post office? I don't think he did.
Pretty sure he has, although that one is far less controversial, I would say.
Do you think that this is going to... Because think of, Joe Rogan is going to be the ultimate litmus test for changing people's listening habits or viewing habits, for that matter, because when I listen to a podcast, I never go to Spotify. And when I go to watch a video, I'm never going to Spotify. So they are going to try and retrain people's habits to direct them to Spotify using the most successful podcaster in the world.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, he's got a number of very loyal fans, and I'm sure he will continue to have great access to guests that are out there. And he's a great interviewer as well. So, if it's a much talked about show, like for instance that Elon Musk one, or if Robin Black shows up again on his show, I think there'll be plenty of people switching on Spotify just to check it out. Is it really going to change people's habits? We'll see what else they get. I mean, Spotify clearly is very aggressive now at this point, wanting to really grow its podcasting fan base, and we'll see what else they can get. I do also imagine, though, it's not like it's going to open up the floodgates and all, podcasters are suddenly going to become the next major Hollywood celebrity. I don't see that at all. I mean, look at Sirius and how many Howard Sterns really exist out there that are getting, are getting deals like that. I think Joe's going to be an outlier, and we'll see how successful this is.
All right, all of your news you can find up at postwrestling.com. A reminder that Thursday we will also have an interview that Andrew Thompson conducted with Michael Oku, and we're also going to have audio up from Cody Rhodes is doing a media call on Thursday, so we'll have audio of that coming your way on Thursday because that's Cody's go home promo, I guess.
The media Q&A, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Not at all.
So, Dynamite from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, started off with a limo pulling up, and the Inner Circle got out, and they told Alex Marvez to shut his ass, and then they all just bullied him and made their way into the arena, and they had a surprise tonight for the Elite. They cut to Big Swole and Private Party, who were wearing armbands for Shad Gaspard, And we also saw the return of Butcher and the Blade in the front row.
I imagine they were probably on Dark this week.
I would hope so, because I don't know what else they were up to.
So the schedule right now is that they did the show live. They're going to presumably be live on Sunday and then live again next Wednesday.
Live Saturday and then live next Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 live shows coming up.
Correct. Yes. Jim Ross had said he got to Jacksonville May the 4th and he's there until the 29th.
Okay. 29th would be, yeah. Okay. That would make sense. So 29th. Wow. Like the Friday.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe he's just going to move to Jacksonville.
It seems like for this week, at least, they might be close to 100%.
Probably.
Except for the international talent.
Yeah, the international talent is not going to be there. But yeah, everyone else, it seems like pretty much everyone else is popping up at this point. Brody Lee came out holding the AEW title with the members of Dark Order. And Brody Lee goes to cut a promo on the stage, and all the guys in the crowd are like heckling him to the point that he was getting thrown here and was telling them to be quiet. He has 10, take a knee, and he just goes on and on about he sweats just like you and he puts his pants on like you and walking on water. He's no god, he's a man, but he operates at an elite level. They're the Lions, and he has to win on Saturday. This was a terrible promo. This was like one of the more important promos I think this man has ever cut for the final show before his AEW title match on Saturday. And I thought this promo sucked.
When you say terrible, I
mean
terrible. What are you comparing it to? Because in my mind,
make me feel something for this match on Saturday, which I feel very little for this Brody Lee character. And this was just like meandering, like words after words after words after words. And I didn't hear any coherent message, much less have any heightened interest for this title match on Saturday, which to me would be the goal of this promo.
I guess I wouldn't, for me, classify it necessarily as terrible. But if you're going to say ineffective, then I might agree with you. I think it's much of the problem here is the fact that the gimmick itself is still relatively undefined, in my opinion. It's still missing that unique hook for me to distinguish it from any sort of typical cult gimmick. As far as like delivery goes, I thought he sounded fine. He sounded like a capable leader of a cult faction, which is still something that is new for Brody Lee on a national stage. Sounded fine, but I just think it's the gimmick that still doesn't have a whole lot of meat attached to it.
I don't know. Him and Rollins, to me, are not getting these cult-like characters across to me. They're both just floundering. He then promoted 10 to High Knight of the Dark Order.
Okay. All right.
The High Knight.
The High Knight. Yeah. So
yeah. He was hanging out with Elon Musk. Jon Moxley versus 10, who they did identify as Preston Vance under a mask. Moxley enters from outside the arena, and Jim Ross mentioned how he saw Moxley for a few minutes on Saturday. That's because the two of them and Tony Khan went to the UFC card on Saturday.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a flying knee from Moxley, and from there, we had Moxley in the corner, and he's... Where is this? Sorry. I'm seeing this number 10, and it's throwing me. What we see is this Rainmaker setup by 10 into an Ace Crusher, where Jim Ross says, we don't say Ace Crusher on this show to Excalibur. Moxley just hit a regular DDT, then got up, hit a Gotch-style pile driver. He's looking out for Brody Lee, and then he hits the paradigm shift for the win in 4.5 minutes. A little bit of offense here for 10, but largely just for Moxley to showcase some other maneuvers leading to the paradigm shift, including the Gotch pile driver.
Yeah, that was about as much as I really took from it. I thought it was, fine match, but relatively unimpressive. Not, I would say, maybe on the level of like fun squash matches. To me, this didn't really stand out, nor was it really dramatic enough to be considered a competitive match. So for me, it just kind of existed.
Yeah. If anything, maybe he learned that's what he took from the Minoru Suzuki feud, his new maneuver.
Yeah, sure.
I would say the first 20 minutes of this show, I would eliminate this as a potential show closer on Saturday. I'm down to it's either going to be the Stadium Stampede or the Cody Archer match because this feels a distant third.
I agree.
Moxley grabbed a chair. He took off the elbow pad of 10, wrapped the arm around the chair, and he doesn't know why Lee took his title, but I'm not going to be chasing you around all night like a geek. You have 10 seconds to correct your mistake, or I'm just going to break his arm. And he starts the countdown. When Brody appears on the screen, he's going to make Moxley sleep in his bed, and he just had to ask for the title back. Did I say this right? That he will make Moxley sleep in his bed. That's what I wrote here. I have no recollection of this line. But I'm sure he said it if I wrote it. We all need to make sacrifices during this time, so he's leaving. Thus, he is abandoning 10, and Moxley, I guess, broke his arm because he just smashed the chair on top of it.
And do you know where he slept tonight?
Well, not in his bed. He's not going all the way home to Vegas. I mean, he's probably in either a hotel or some Airbnb.
Actually, yeah, he. I believe he told Robin Black in his interview that he and Renee rented an Airbnb.
Okay. That actually makes sense that they're both there during this time, right?
So not in his own bed, really.
No. So
that's the threat. And he's going to send him all the way to Vegas, back into.
Well, Harper's not sleeping in his bed either. So, I mean, he's not from the area.
We need a deeper analysis, I think, of who's going to sleep in whose bed.
Well, let me say I was pretty restless by the end of this segment. So that's the title match. I would say I kept an open mind throughout this. I think Moxley, this just feels. I don't think he's hurt or helped by this program. It just seems to be a transition for him. But I think that this was. I think that Brody Lee has to come out and have the match of a lifetime on Saturday, and the circumstances will be difficult in this environment. Because the lead up to me, it did not get this guy in the role of title challenger in my eyes.
I agree. I mean, Moxley is already very much established in a certain position, but this whole program, it really is a major test for Brody Lee to see what he could do with this amount of TV time and the amount of promo time that he's had. I would say, if I had to give all of the build a letter grade, I might give it maybe somewhere around a C. But, the match is where he can really shine and really make up for the rest.
The question is, did you want to see this by the end of it?
Yes. I mean, I'm still curious about the match itself. To me, that has the most potential of anything. So I will be there watching.
MJF came out with a Wardlow. This is when Jim Ross brought up Shad Gaspard passing away. And we had MJF taking on Marcos Stunt. And MJF is continually mocking him. He even did a kip up here. And he forces Marco to put his finger into his nose.
Just really
gross.
Pretty gross, but schoolyard bullying type of stuff.
Yeah. Wardlow grabs Stunt from the floor and is choking him on the rope. And MJF yells to Shivani to tell him this is Jungle Boy's future. And Tony just screams, "I'm not going to say that." And he says, "This guy reminds me of one of my kids." Stunt then does his big comeback with a Rana, a jumping knee strike, but then Stunt gets caught up in the ring skirt. MJF misses with an axe handle, and it's Stunt just using his speed and MJF continually missing him. This was like Roadrunner and Daredevil spots between the two, as MJF misses and runs into the steps. And then as Stunt goes for a lope to the floor, he goes into a forearm from MJF, who brings him into the ring. Double underhook shoulder breaker into the salt of the earth Fujiwara armbar for the win in 5:58. And this was just MJF playing a cocky asshole heel, and Stunt is a great babyface to play off that character.
Yeah. If the goal is to just have MJF feel like, schoolyard bully, I thought that was achieved here. Again, not as fun of a squash match as any of Stunt's matches with the Giants, like Archer or Brody Lee. But, it was okay. Something felt to me about this show that despite the crowd being there, and last week the crowd even sounding really great on that tape show, for some reason, the energy of the crowd to me felt like it didn't make much of a difference in this match, nor any of the other matches to me. The energy just didn't really feel like it had too many peaks and valleys, and instead it was just kind of at this point just background noise.
I thought they were actually detrimental during the Brody Lee promo. Like, I thought the like heckling and yelling at him was actually kind of throwing him off, and it was like a clear negative for me in that segment. And I'm with you. I didn't think the atmosphere kind of matched previous weeks, and I don't know why that was. MJF makes fun of Stunt some more. He said he was going to get one of his Jacksonville rats to come kiss Marco, but no one would touch his lips. So he puts on his ring, and what is going to touch his lips is the ring as he punches him in the face. And at this point, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus run down. And I have no idea why these guys didn't have his back for this whole match. I mean, Wardlow's out there choking this guy. Where was his backup?
I had no idea. I mean, they were just going to wait for the ring to show up. I think that was when it went too far.
That was enough. Well, face-to-face segment. Tony Schiavone is in the ring and brings out Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson to their AEW themes. Jake mentions how the two of them never faced each other, and I thought this was a good line. He said, "Dreams and nightmares aren't real, but Lance Archer is." And Cody sacrificed Dustin just so he wouldn't have to face Archer. And Archer's a mean son of a bitch who will rip out Cody's heart. And he asks Arn if he got let out of the home tonight to come here because they haven't seen him in a few weeks, and says, "You're looking thick." Dude, this is the creepiest character in wrestling right now, Jake Roberts. Arn says both of them are credible, and he sees the evil permeating out of Jake. He always knew all those years that people were mesmerized by the snake, which was only a distraction from the evil that Jake possessed. Jake is interrupting Arn. He's like challenging this guy to a fight, and Arn is like just getting back to the promo and says how Mike Tyson has free reign to wander anywhere in the arena, which is a hell of a stipulation he worked into his contract as title presenter. I want free reign to wander around the arena.
I mean, wouldn't it be terrible if, you sign up for a contract signing and you're confined to like one room for the entire night? I would hope that he'd be able to walk around.
He asks if Jake will throw that stupid snake onto Tyson. And Jake has promised Archer the first shot at Tyson to knock him out. And he's hoping that Bimbo Brandy was going to present the title. Arn says Cody told him that I have to win. And before Jake can get in some line, Arn just cuts him off. He's like, "Don't interrupt me." He has to be champion because he's one of the leaders of this company that turned the business on its head. And he tells Jake that I'm a vicious prick. And Jake, I'm glad you do your DDP yoga because you better be limber when I come and spine buster your ass. And the two have to be separated by officials at the end.
Certainly they were going for a very unscripted and, real feeling. And, while I felt like the segment was not perfectly smooth, that was perfectly fine because it had moments of pause and interruptions that felt like they could have taken place if this was a real press conference at a boxing or a UFC event. And I never really felt like it hit like maybe like a real go-home level type of peak. But I thought it still did a relatively good job. And for me, like, especially getting to hear Arn Anderson speak for the first time in a long time, I thought Arn sounded awesome. In particular, when he really seemed to, like, almost get legitimately annoyed at Jake always cutting him off and him, like, really feeling like he was just, like, trying to take control of the situation again. When he threatened to, like, spine buster Jake at the end, I really got into it, Do you think that's something we're going to see?
I think we almost have to after this tease. I liked Arn a lot in this segment. I was looking forward to this with both of them. I wouldn't say this was like the home run, go home segment, like you said, but I thought Arn by the end really got, solid end to this promo. It was good. It was good for what it was. I felt this show definitely needed Cody on it. I think that was a glaring omission for this go home show.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes you wonder why he wasn't there, nor his opponent Lance Archer. So.
I think they thought this segment would be enough, and I don't think it was. I think you needed Cody on this show.
I think you needed that final bit of physicality between the two heading into the match just to really drive it home. If it was that, I wonder if this would have even been good enough to close the show. But as it existed, it was fine. I was more so, I think, interested in seeing how something like this would play out and whether or not it would make them want to do more Legends kind of like face-to-face encounters in the future. It's certainly, you have so much talent that's still out there who can still talk, and just because, guys can't wrestle, it doesn't mean they don't have much to offer to modern generation's television. So I thought this came across relatively decently. Again, it wasn't like something that was like, wow, amazing, you have to see it. But I thought there's certainly potential for like, still great promo battles between like legends of the past.
They had a video of Darby Allin with his buddies playing cards, and they're all wearing different masks of the people that are in the ladder match on Saturday. And Allin is, he has his poker chips, and he puts them all into the center, and then he lights the card on fire. So I claim this is poker. This is a different game that his buddies play, and a ladder is set up, and our final shot is Darby Allin climbing atop this ladder, and the entire side of his leg is engulfed in flames.
No, well, it's like just another week for those guys.
So that was it. This was a Darby Allin video. And then we got another video. This one, the returning Pac. And he is howling as he has these photos open of the best friends on his table. And he says, I was forced to sit at home and weather the storm once before. I'm not going to do it again. And it's interspersed with shots of him with a protective face mask on, and then without it. He calls Orange Cassidy a cocky prick. Fenix is an assassin, and to consider himself marked. And this was just Pac being a maniac for 60 seconds.
So why was he wearing the mask in some scenes and not others?
He's a conflicted character. He does want to encourage certain safety measures, but on the other, he is deliberately disobeying his own encouragement.
One was like, so there were two Pacs on screen. One was like, casually dressed Pac. The other was, I guess, the wrestler Pac without a shirt in full gear. But that wrestler, he was wearing a mask almost just. So he's really like, I think he's trying to socially distance from himself, was the message.
Yeah, exactly. I like the fact that it just out of context said Tupac was on the screen. Orange Cassidy and Rey Fenix. This was very strange without the crowd, because I feel in a normal arena setting, I think this would have torn the house down.
Perhaps, yeah.
The best friends come out with Cassidy, and they're sent to the back. So Cassidy learned nothing from Marcos Stunt. And then Fenix does his leaping kick that he did last week that looked so awesome. But this week, Cassidy just stands, and Fenix clearly misses him. And that's the point. Cassidy has scouted this and just keeps walking. But Fenix looked like such a dork here.
I guess the idea is to rehab Orange Cassidy by having him, this week outsmart Fenix. I mean, it was a form of 50-50 booking. And I think as a result, you had somebody who looked incredibly cool last week in Rey Fenix, perhaps, immediately lose that value by coming out here and missing the kick.
Like he lands on his feet, and then he's just going to watch Cassidy do his entrance as he stands there, that he's missed this kick and has to regroup. So the match begins. Cassidy just ducks out of the way. So Fenix goes for Cassidy and ends up headbutting his own head into the turnbuckle, missing him. Fenix leaped up the ropes into a leg drop from the stage. We go picture in picture, which also made its long-awaited return. There's a baseball slide drop kick that sent Cassidy into the cameraman, and they shot it from the perspective of the cameraman who got hit here. Cassidy then hit this big sequence coming back, including a spinning DDT and a deep impact off the turnbuckle. Fenix comes back. The Muscle Buster gets countered with a small package for a 2 count. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. Kip Sabian comes out with a ladder and just sits on top of this ladder like he's judging a tennis match. And Fenix hits a low blow that the referee misses because he's focused on Sabian. And then Fenix hits the rolling cutter to pin Cassidy in 10:31 after the low blow. And then Sabian gives the lazy middle finger to Cassidy.
Yeah. Very athletic, very fast match. I thought there were some really impressive sequences within it. But I would say maybe due to the crowd, the atmosphere there, it felt relatively, I don't know, not special for a match, especially.
Like you knew what this could be. You knew what this could be, and it wasn't that. And I think it was also kind of, to me, kind of thrown off by like this finish where it was just so, like, what an awkward role to put Rey Fenix in, where this guy's winning with like low blows and stuff against Orange Cassidy, and it just seems he's so miscast right now.
The camera missed the low blow too, so.
Everyone was distracted by Kip Sabian. Everyone.
Yeah, clearly.
Kazarian and Sky come out. They tip the big ladder with Kip in it, so he tumbles into the ring, and we just get all the guys running in, and a bunch of the ladder match participants are on the floor. Phoenix does this enormous dive, leaping off the top rope to the floor, and he just crashes down. It did not look like a pretty angle. It looked to be his shoulder that he might have landed near, and as they're tending to him, Colt Cabana runs up and does an Asai moonsault over the prone Phoenix onto the others that are standing. Cassidy then gets launched onto everyone by the best friends, and it's pretty much an excuse to get all the ladder match guys out there, save for a few. And hopefully Rey Fenix was okay here.
Hopefully they're all okay. I mean, every dive I felt like was didn't look that easy to take. So I guess that's a sign of things to come in this ladder match.
Which we have 9 people in and 1 mystery person.
Okay.
Nyla Rose and Britt Baker versus Hikaru Sheeta and Chris Statlander. Excalibur explained to JR what the boot means, and it's her alien greeting.
Got it.
The babyfaces attack. They got rid of the kendo stick. And then Britt Baker retreats to the floor, and she doesn't want to be tagged in. So it's Rose in there, and they go picture in picture. During this time, Baker gets tagged in reluctantly, but then quickly Rose is right back in. Sheeta and Chris Statlander lift up Nyla Rose while Baker is seated in the corner, and they proceed to hit a double team DVD onto Britt Baker while she's sitting, and landed on like her leg or knee, and this is when this match totally fell apart. Baker is obviously hurt, and they have to get Baker to the corner. Statlander is just openly communicating with Nyla Rose to try and, I guess, figure out something here. Nyla literally has to pull Britt Baker from one side of the ring to the other to tag her, and then she works the whole rest of this match. The doctor's out checking on Baker's knee, and Sheeta's in there with Rose, and it culminates with a beast bomb with Nyla Rose pinning Sheeta in 9:40 ahead of their title match on Saturday. And then after the fact, Rose gets a table, and officials are helping Baker to the back. Chris Statlander stops Rose on the turnbuckle, and Sheeta delivers a superplex, putting Rose through the table. So while Sheeta loses the match, she at least gets the comeuppance by superplexing Nyla Rose. But the story here was mainly Britt Baker, and hopefully this is not another injury on top of it, because she looked to be in a bad way here from that spot onward.
Yeah, the injury was really tough to watch, and immediately you see it and you knew something was wrong. So hopefully she's okay. I mean, she had that nose break, and this to come, relatively like in short amount of time after that would be really bad. Would really suck for her. So, but under I would say perhaps those circumstances, the rest of the participants did the best that they could to keep the match together. I really do wonder if that was the intended finish, because it certainly is kind of odd booking ahead of a pay-per-view match. You had Nyla Rose here essentially winning a handicap match before defending her belt against the person that she ended up pinning. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just, even given the circumstances, like you would think that, okay, if we have to do a clean finish, it's Statlander taking the fall here. I didn't really understand the idea of pinning Sheeta. Who knows what happened here, but I mean, it wasn't like Sheeta and Statlander couldn't finish this match. But anyway, that's how it finished. I just thought, this was one where you just chalk it up like this kind of just fell apart, and it was just how do we get out of this thing by the end? So hopefully Baker's okay, and we'll seek an update on that. Marvez interviewed Jon Moxley. He says everything is a reduction down to violence, and things only get worse from here for Brody Lee because of him stealing the title. He's going to drop Lee on his head with enough force to knock out a rhinoceros. And it was nice knowing you, Brody.
Rhinoceros, wow.
Yeah. That's a hell of a threat. Shawn Spears news, SSN. He is in this studio environment with the green screen, and he's doing his best, I guess, cable news impression. And he announces Dustin Rhodes has retired, congratulating Cody because that's what he was trying to do. And he knows that retiring must be a difficult pill for Dustin to swallow, although 12 years ago, pills were not hard to swallow for him. He closes by saying his goal is to crack the top 5 in AEW, and maybe I need to go into business for myself. And he challenges Dustin Rhodes, and by challenging him, it now means AEW has to book and promote this match based on some kind of logic, and Dustin can be seen at your local museum. And we come back, and there's a graphic for Dustin versus Shawn Spears, so this worked, and this would be the quickest retirement ever. As JR says, why the hell not? Coming up Saturday night, Spears and Dustin. What a weird setup for a match.
It was weird. I mean, yeah. Well, look, I mean, as far as like the SSN news thing goes, I mean, it's a new idea that Shawn Spears has. I thought the graphics looked really good. The whole thing, you know, the packaging looked good. But really,
the delivery was not.
I mean, the content I felt really was just any other promo, except, you know, for no real good reason, delivered in this sort of very elaborate faux news type of setting. And I thought the content as well, like when he announced Dustin retiring, I know now that was supposed to be trash talk, but I couldn't really tell if he actually meant that Dustin Rhodes actually retired off camera. And then, like, to just challenge him to a match afterwards. Some of that, I think, could have used a bit more editing. You know, it's something different visually that I think will make him stand out. Clearly, like, whatever's going on with Tully, that's not happening. Whatever this whole, like, Shawn Spear...
I'm imagining Tully hosting this segment. This would have been great.
Oh, Tully doing it would be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to see that. But, you know, whatever they were doing, like, trying to audition tag team partners for Shawn Spears, they'd probably drop that. So this is just like the next thing I think he's trying to really create an identity with. Definitely could use perhaps a few more attempts to really flesh out, but yeah, I give anybody credit for like trying to be creative and doing something unique at this point.
Next week there's going to be a battle royal, and the winner of the battle royal gets a shot at the TNT champion in 2 weeks' time on June 3rd.
Yeah. So I guess we shall see. They're going to do that next week.
They previewed the Stadium Stampede with highlights of the street fight from 2 weeks ago, and the main event was Sammy Guevara, Matt Hardy, where we had Matt Hardy constantly going for the twist of fate, and Sammy at one point countered blocked it by using a handstand. They went through the break. There's a pair of side effects. The second one sends Sammy to the floor. Matt got out of the way of a shooting star press, and then he goes after Guevara's ankle. He takes the shoe off and starts biting his foot. Guevara comes back with a jumping knee, and his springboard Oscutter only gets a 2 count. Shooting star press, he lands on the knees. Matt cradles him for a 2 count, and then hits one final twist of fate to win the match in 13 minutes and 7 seconds.
Yeah. You know, I don't really know what it is, but like a lot of the matches on the show, I can't really pinpoint anything really wrong with any of them, but I just felt like it was a match that lacked energy or really anything that made them stand out to me in any way. So
I thought Guevara looked good in this match, but I thought it dragged too at points. It just felt like a long match to just kind of close out the show. And I think everyone knew we were getting something with the Inner Circle at the end, and I think by, 8 minutes in, you were just ready to get to the end here. I think it's a tough spot when you're putting Matt Hardy in like a long main event to close the show. Not bad match, but not a great one either. But I do think Guevara would really stood out to me here. So Matt gets a chair, and the Inner Circle appear, and they're inside of the football field next door. and this thing's got no sound. So Jericho is cutting some hell of a promo that we can't hear yet. They've got Kenny Omega. They toss water onto him and then attack him with a bat. And then we get the return of the Young Bucks, which they had already spoiled by putting up the graphic many times earlier in the night, revealing that the Bucks and Paige were all in the match. And the Bucks appear in the stands and do cross bodies. Matt arrives, and they're all fighting. And Jim Ross mentions here that the ring will be set up at the 50-yard line on Saturday. And as they're fighting, this figure sprints down the football field, and it's Hangman Page delivering lariats, lays out everyone. The Inner Circle takes off, and we think the Elite are all together, but then Hangman just walks away on his own, leaving the Bucks, Omega, and Matt Hardy there at the end zone to pose as the drone zooms out to end the show.
And they have the Elite's logo painted on one end zone, and you would imagine the Inner Circle painted on the other one too. So this entire football field will be like decked out for this particular match, which I'm pretty interested in seeing. I love seeing Paige. Like, you know, like when he just appeared, it was this little speck.
That was a cool visual. Yes.
That just got bigger and bigger and bigger as he delivered this like running lariat from like, you know, probably the other end of the football field all the way to Jake Hager. Yeah, I mean, this was, I think, the ending that we all expected. It was nice to see Paige, nice to see the Bucks again. But I will say overall, like, didn't really leave this episode of Dynamite like that hyped for the show. Nonetheless, I think it's a pretty solid looking card.
I did not think this was a great go-home show. I was with you. I thought by the end of it, if I was on the fence about buying this show, I would say that typically the AEW go-home shows are really great. And part of it is you don't have a crowd. But if that's kind of what I'm looking at and what I'm judging this show with that handicap, am I that inspired to spend money for a show that's going to be facing the same handicap as well on Saturday? I would say if I was on the fence, I'd certainly have a real interest because the stadium match is going to be a total spectacle, and I imagine that'll be a lot of fun and very creative. I don't know if that would be enough that I would want to buy this show, even though I think the ladder match will be spectacular. I think Cody and Lance Archer has been built up pretty well, but I don't think this is going to be a big pay-per-view for AEW standards.
I feel like the pay-per-view will be different from my expectations for Dynamite. I mean, I think what we saw in this edition of Dynamite, I will say, like, I felt like there were missed opportunities with great promos to be delivered on this show to really send you into that pay-per-view, like, really, like, you know, salivating and watching all of these matches. But I believe on the pay-per-view, you will see matches that mean a lot more and have more stakes attached to them than what you got on this episode of Dynamite. So I wouldn't... I you know, seeing, for instance, like a pretty lukewarm, like Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara match won't really affect my expectations for, you know, the pay-per-view matches in any way. I think on paper, it's a really, probably like, you know, I'm not going to, maybe not necessarily the best card they could possibly do during this time, but like, I still think pretty good. You know, you have the ladder match. Do you actually want to go through it, or should we wait till tomorrow? What do you think?
Let's just quickly look at the lineup, the final lineup that they've got here. Here, I'll pull it up. Sure. I do think, like, the show, I'm confident it's going to be a pretty good show on Saturday. I would just say this to me was like certainly a weaker Dynamite to go into it. So AEW title match, it's Jon Moxley versus Brody Lee. Cody versus Lance Archer for the AEW TNT Championship with Mike Tyson presenting the title. MJF against Jungle Boy. The ladder match, which features Darby Allin, Colt Cabana, Orange Cassidy, Phoenix, Scorpio Sky, Kip Sabian, Frankie Kazarian, Luchasaurus, and the mystery person. That's going to be fantastic. I think that's such an amazing collection of performers that I don't think that can be bad.
Yeah. The only, you know, I mean, seeing some of the bumps that they took even in this segment had me just a little bit scared about like the amount of risk that some of these guys are going to take. But it'll certainly be poised to be a pretty spectacular match, yeah.
Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Sheeta for the women's title. No DQ, no countout. Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander.
And we'll see.
Tentative, yeah, that did not look good tonight. Then we've got the Stadium Stampede with the Elite versus the Inner Circle, Dustin Rhodes versus Shawn Spears, why the hell not? And on the pre-show, the buy-in, Private Party versus Best Friends, #1 contenders match.
So what are we, 9 matches?
9, yes.
9 matches, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they, whatever happens to Britt Baker and Chris Statlander, I wonder. Hopefully she's okay. But if they had to scrap a match from this card, I certainly wouldn't be complaining. 9 is a lot. 8 is already a lot. So I'm looking forward to. I think there are a number of draws on this show. Okay, and maybe at the top is the Stadium Stampede, the ladder match as you mentioned, Cody versus Archer. I think they'll do a really good job, in particular because it's Cody on a pay-per-view match. Lance Archer, who's been fantastic. I think the story has been pretty decent. It hasn't been amazing, but it's been decent. And I think for a belt with Mike Tyson ringside, that to me, actually, I'm quite interested in. The rest, I would say, pretty standard fare that you would expect maybe to, be featured on a Dynamite. And I'm including Moxley versus Lee on that one. But that I'm interested in to see how Brody Lee fares on a big match outside of a WWE formula.
Yep. And I think Cody and Archer, you've got like the tease of if you have something larger planned for Mike Tyson that I think will be intriguing for people. But I really don't feel Tyson feels like he's any kind of difference maker on this show in terms of people buying it or not.
No, I don't either. I mean, we're comparing if the expectation is, what he did with Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels. Like,
no, I'm just saying like even something smaller like him being.
What I mean is you don't have the benefit of him appearing on your TV to really kind of drum up any sort of interest. He really just feels pretty loosely associated with this pay-per-view right now.
Even to send in a promo tonight, even to send in something taped that, hey, I'm coming, and, just 60 seconds would have been something tonight. It seems to me that the value of him, it's either just the cameo and that's it, it's one and done, or it's something big coming out of it that we'll get some payoff to later, but I mean, maybe expectations are too high, and maybe this is just simply it's an appearance, and that's going to be it.
Yeah, could be.
So yeah, we'll go through the card more in depth on the Hangout on Thursday, but let's move over and check out your feedback. Starting off with tonight's poll, what did you think of AEW Dynamite on a scale of 1 to 10? A 7.47. I think that's high for this week's show.
I do as well, but we'll see what the forum says.
Paul from New Jersey. This Brody character is a complete misfire for me. Definitely not the route I would have taken. Jake Roberts and Arn Anderson were easily my highlight of the night. Just a quick tidbit about Dark Side of the Ring. I remember wanting to see Owen in the Hall of Fame, especially after Mark Henry's speech. However, after hearing from Martha and Owen's son, I now realize why that was foolish of me.
All right. We go to our next Ryan, who says, did I just watch Rey Fenix die? That was an ugly bump to the floor. Jake and Arn face to face makes me wish it happened when they could go.
It was the thing with the Phoenix dive was not just like the height he got, but like the amount of speed he picked up on the way down and was just rotating. And I'm just hoping he didn't like land right on the shoulder, because it seemed to be that was like how his body was kind of angled.
That entire series of like just dives just had me. Oh man. Yeah.
Adam from the Street, was Darby Allin's video the best version of the spot WWE always does on the Go Home show before Money in the Bank, of a guy just needlessly climbing a ladder, but in this case, setting himself on fire as well? Yeah, Corbin certainly didn't do that.
Rory from, they told me how to pronounce this.
Poconos?
Is it Poconos?
We'll go with that.
Okay, Poconos, Pennsylvania. Really enjoyed tonight's episode. It was nice seeing Private Party in the crowd wearing SG elbow pads, and JR made a nice tribute to Shad as well. The Darby Allin and Pac vignettes were great. I like the Shawn Spears news segment too, but Spears versus Rhodes at Double or Nothing is not going to make me want to shell out $50 US. However, the rest of the card looks great, and I will be buying the event. Lots of hard-hitting action tonight, though it was a bummer to see Britt Baker get injured. Hope she's alright. I'm looking forward to Double or Nothing on Saturday and post-wrestling's coverage. 9 out of 10.
Right answer, Rory. Okay, let's go down to Andrew from Cape Breton. Clearly, we now have proof that Brody Lee isn't like Vince McMahon at all, as he was okay with someone taking a knee. Okay, that was we skipped over that. He was forcing 10 to take a knee and then got upset at the way he didn't take a knee. And Andrew is referring to how in the XFL, everyone was to stand for the national anthem. AEW was good tonight. The highlight for me was MJF versus Marcos Stunt. I do think that while Marco's role as an enhancement talent is great, I think they could benefit from having him beat large jobbers or one-off guys like Spike Dudley did back in ECW. He's perfect for this role, but if he gets a few wins under his belt, you could maybe build to more drama in his matches. There were a few lowlights, though, especially with taking care of your opponents. I learned why Jim Ross loved football players so much. They can catch things really well. There were no football players under Phoenix tonight, sadly, unless they are all terrible at playing. I'm also hopeful that Britt Baker wasn't hurt after Nyla Rose was dumped on her leg. If she's fine, then I'm probably just dumb. But if she got hurt, AEW needs to reevaluate their women's division, as botches tend to be frequent in their matches, sadly, especially when Chris Statlander is wrestling. Hopefully everything is okay. 6 out of 10 show today, and a nice distraction after the Owen documentary. Yeah, I do not think that was story at all, because there was no story to be told with that other than this match seemed like a mess afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Alex from Portland says, Brody Lee hasn't won me over yet, but he has a great chance with a match against Moxley. Regardless of who wins or loses that match, I hope both men get the chance to have a lights-out match to showcase their CZW backgrounds. Pat getting promo time was very much needed. Out of everyone not appearing at Double or Nothing, his is the presence I feel is most lacking. I'm glad AEW made mention of Shad Gaspard, but it happening while Marcos Stunts and MJF were flexing off was just odd. Question, Shawn Spears apparently has a news network. What do you think of the idea of a conspiracy theorist gimmick for him? Just imagine him coming out to the ring next week with a barrel of hydrochloroquine, wishing he could have Alex Jones as a tag team partner. With his charisma, I think Spears could pull it off.
I don't know about that at all from any side of his argument there. I would say heavy no on that one. I
mean, I certainly don't expect them to dive into politics like that. But I think the look and feel of it certainly feels like it's one of those, very antagonizing types of very loud, in-your-face newscasters. I would say maybe more so go with the influence of the aesthetic of those shows rather than maybe the content.
Doug writes in, the show was a real step down from the recent weeks tonight. The fight stream certainly, and I presume also the TV broadcast got off to a bad start with regular audio skips throughout the first segment, which is always a vibe killer. I didn't get that on the TSN feed, but
no, me neither.
Maybe others did. Various bits of loose work prevailed throughout the matches, leading up to some botching and nasty moments. By the brawl after Cassidy versus Phoenix, it felt as though everyone was trying their hardest to miss their mark and risk injuring themselves all at once. I certainly hope that both Britt Baker and Rey Fenix are well, and that Cassidy's ankles didn't take too much of a battering from the barricade in his assisted dive. The show still had its moments, and plenty of them. Everything just felt very loose tonight and a bit disjointed, until the main event, which I very much enjoyed. The closing shot was magnificent, and I'm still looking forward to Saturday night. Things just felt plagued by small and unnecessary glitches, which it hasn't in a long time. The Inner Circle beatdown of Kenny Omega being muted was painful, as was JR's selling of the Shawn Spears Dustin Rhodes match announcement. It still gets 6.5 out of 10 from me. I have no regrets staying up until 3 a.m. in the UK watching it.
We got a B Detroit who says, what up, though? Kinda underwhelming go-home show, to be honest. The Darby video was short but great. The Jake and Arn promo was kinda awkward, but the in-ring stuff was pretty good besides the women's four-way. Yikes. 6.5 out of 10 for me, because I guess the only matches that pull me into maybe possibly buying this $50 pay-per-view are the ladder match and the Stadium Stampede.
And for some, that might be enough. Like that, Those are two attractions. I think everyone's interested in the Stadium Stampede. The ladder match looks excellent on paper, and that might be enough to convince people, along with, the Cody thing, I think, but largely that's been pretty well built up.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan is our last one here from Kitchener, Ontario. Underwhelming for a go-home show for AEW standards. It's a lot better than most of WWE programming of late. To see the champion in the opening match is refreshing. Not buying the Brody Lee character, and I think it's way too soon to end Moxley's reign. The face-to-face was excellent. It took me back to my childhood with two of the best talkers of their time. I just want to say my thoughts and prayers are with Shad Gaspard's friends and family. I was really holding out hope that it could end positively. R.I.P.
Yeah. It's a weird week for pro wrestling. Absolutely. So,
thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Hopefully we ended off on a brighter note with good wrestling.
Well, we have many shows coming up once again The Hangout, Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be previewing Double or Nothing. We'll be taking your phone calls to chat about whether it's Dark Side of the Ring, your interest in Double or Nothing coming up, NXT from Wednesday night, and as well, we'll be joined by David Bixenspan at the start of the show. So I'm looking forward to that. Rewind to SmackDown will be Friday night, and then Double or Nothing post-show, Saturday night, right after the pay-per-view. So you can check out all of that great stuff. Wai, anything else you would like to mention before we get out of here?
Not a whole lot. Nope, not really.
Nothing. Have you been watching any Last Dance this week?
I have, yeah. I like most people, I think we all caught. Did you catch the finale?
I did,
Oh.
and I was an honorary King of Sport this week, so I will be chatting with our friends Nate and Marcus later this week. I think that show will be out Friday. A whole show, not a whole show, but a segment of me chatting nothing but basketball.
Oh, excellent. I'm looking forward to that.
A lot of fun.
What do you think about the whole pizza deal in Utah?
Do you not buy it?
I do buy it. Especially after hearing the director, Jason, how do I say his name? Hare. Hearing his full story about what exactly happened, about how spit on it, spit on the pizza. I mean, he ordered this pizza after his friends didn't wait for him to eat dinner. And so he ordered this pizza late at night and said, I'm going to eat this whole thing by myself because you guys didn't wait for me. And so he went as far as to spit on the pizza to mark his territory. And that
I believe he got food poisoning. Like I don't look into it as like this crazy conspiracy or anything like that. I think he ate something bad. He got sick. And that's about it. I don't have the theory that it was like this premeditated thing. I think he just ate something expired.
I think so too. But who knows? Stories are fun to speculate on. But listen, it made for one of the most memorable games in NBA history.
That it did. Okay. Well, we can also chat about The Last Dance if you'd like on Thursday. So that's it for us. For Wai, I am John. Thank you for listening to Rewind-A-Dynamite.